Good afternoon to all our listeners and viewers of the NDC Heartbeat podcast. We're happy to have all of you who are listening on WeFM Radio, Vibes FM, Spice Capital Radio, and indeed those who are on the NDC Facebook platform. Happy to have all of you who are joining the Heartbeat this afternoon. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon in Grenada. Well, for today's program, we will hear from Miss Andrea Sembernard. She is the treasurer of the National Democratic Congress Party, advisor to the Prime Minister, ambassador, and special envoy for foreign investments and development. But for today, she will speak in her capacity as the chairperson for the Celebrations Committee to mark the party's first anniversary in office. And she will share the calendar of events to mark this historic moment for the NDC party and government. We will then share with you the full, unedited presentation of the IMF report on the surveillance of the Grenadian economy under Article 4 of the IMF Health Check Consultation on Countries. Here now is Ms. Andrea Sembernard as she outlines the activities to mark the party's first year anniversary in office, and this will be followed by the recent special report from the IMF on the Grenadian economy. I wish to take this opportunity to state at this time that today's episode will extend beyond an hour. So let me say to all of you who are listening on radio, please note that you can continue listening on the NDC Facebook platform, as some of the radio stations will have other programming commitments after 1 p.m. Here now is Ms. Andrea Sembernard, and this will be followed by the IMF report on Grenada. Good afternoon, Andrea. Good of you to have the time to be on Heartbeat today. We want to touch base on what is happening, this major accomplishment of the NDC party in government. You are the chairperson of the planning committee to celebrate the activities to mark 1 year in office by the NDC administration. I know that there is a mega bingo that has already been promoted, but share with us some of the other activities that your committee is planning to celebrate this historical event.
Good afternoon, Terry. It's a pleasure to be here. It's in particular a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about our 1 year anniversary celebration calendar. It is, as you said, an historic celebration, and so we have a wonderful, exciting calendar of events planned to commemorate the anniversary. We just to run through the week of events, and we'll be hearing a lot more about it as we get close to the event. We're now just under a month away from our anniversary kickoff. On the 16th of June, we'll be having a pre-celebration dance in Guave, so there will definitely be more information coming about that. On the 21st of June, that's Wednesday, we're all looking forward to hearing from the Prime Minister his national address, a sum up of the year's highlights, and a little bit of a look going forward. Thursday, June the 22nd, will be a government town hall meeting, and so we're looking forward to, at that event, really hearing from the people and hearing some of their input about how the year has gone, and again, what we can look forward to going forward. Friday, the 23rd of June, will be our National Day of Prayer, where we will, as a nation, give thanksgiving for the wonderful year that we have had, the successes. We will complete that day with the evening candlelight vigil, which will be held at the La Sagesse playing field. So we're all looking forward to that gathering and opportunity to pray together. Sunday, June the 25th, we will start the day with church celebrations across the nation in each constituency, led by all of our wonderful MPs and caretakers. And on Sunday, June 25th, we will complete the celebrations with the bingo event, which is Talk of the Town. It will be a wonderful event. We have some great prizes, cars, cash prizes. The first game will be kicking off at 5 p.m. We'll have live entertainment. So bring your friends and family. It'll be a wonderful celebration and an opportunity to win cars and cash prizes.
Wow, sounds exciting indeed. And how can the folks out in the diaspora participate, especially in the bingo?
I'm really glad you asked that question. So we actually also have a special digital platform for our diaspora to participate in the bingo event in particular. So GoToFet will have our online tickets available for $25 US, and we are inviting the diaspora, all of our members across the globe, to participate in the event. It will be both live streamed so that you can see the celebrations, but there will be a special feed for the persons in the diaspora playing bingo to have a direct feed and opportunity to play along with the nation.
Great. And would there be entertaining arrangements planned?
We have entertainment planned. I'm not in a position yet to commit to what would be our schedule, but we certainly will have live entertainment and bands, and we're looking forward to a big party atmosphere and celebration along with the bingo.
Great. Fantastic. Sounds like going to be a rather exciting bingo.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
With respect to the Prime Minister, political leader presentation, town hall sessions, would this be interactive with the general public?
Absolutely. That is a come-all event. We will have heard from the Prime Minister his actual national address, but following that will be a town hall meeting, which, of course, we always encourage interaction. We want to hear from the people, and so that town hall meeting will be an opportunity for persons to interact with the Prime Minister, with members of Parliament in relation to the year's successes.
Well, this indeed will be a rare occasion and at the same time a historical moment, because very rare, or maybe it has never happened before over the years, where a Prime Minister delivers his address and the public can have an opportunity to quiz him, to question him. This is unheard of in Grenada.
Well, I think it follows...
What has brought this along?
I think, well, while it's unheard of to have the celebration in this way, I think it follows the spirit of the Prime Minister and the National Democratic Congress, who embarked on this journey of engaging with people, in having town halls periodically and often, consultations with people. I think it really fits with the spirit of the National Democratic Congress and our desire to hear from people. What are the problems? What are the solutions? Working together with communities to really move Grenada forward.
Great. Well, thank you so very much again. We certainly would love to have you back sometime soon so that we can get more details. And if you wish for some of your subcommittee chairpersons to share, please, by all means, the Heartbeat is always open.
Thank you for having me. I'll look forward to coming again.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. Have a great Sunday afternoon.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to this special press briefing of the Ministry of Finance. A team from the International Monetary Fund has concluded its mission of surveillance of the Grenadian economy as part of the Article 4 consultation. The Article 4 consultation is regarded as the economic health check of a country. The previous Article 4 consultation for Grenada was concluded on May 4, 2022. The team is headed by Ms. Hewden Lynn of IMF Mission, Chief for Grenada. Other partners joining the mission include representatives from the World Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and while in Grenada, the team held discussion with various stakeholders in the public and private sectors, including the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance and his team, other government ministers and senior public officers, leader of His Majesty's Opposition, representative from the Grenada Authority for the Regulation of Financial Institutions, statutory bodies, the Bankers Association, non-bank financial sector, the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the manufacturing sector, the tourism sector, and the trade union movement. The team is here today to share with us details on the mission's conclusion. To present the conclusion and to answer questions, we have Chief of the IMF Mission, Ms. Lynn, and the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Mike Sylvester. We will begin with opening remarks from the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Sylvester. Mr. Sylvester, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. And let me say good morning to one and all. Special good morning, of course, to the media who are here with us, as well as our listening and viewing public. The Article 4 consultation or economic surveillance is one of the key mandates of the International Monetary Fund, which is conducted in its 190 member countries. In the past week or so, in fact, in the past 2 weeks, we have had the pleasure of hosting a team from the IMF headed by Ms. Huidan Lin, who is here with us this morning to present the conclusion findings. As the chair just mentioned, we are also accompanied on this mission by our representatives, our partners. So the World Bank is also represented. We also have representatives from the Caribbean Development Bank and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So we are happy to have them, and of course I want to again wish them, welcome them to Grenada. The team presented the conclusion to the Minister of Finance yesterday, and of course to the Prime Minister not too long ago. We are very happy with the conclusions and recommendations from the fund. So we broadly concur with the conclusions and recommendations. We are happy that on balance the report is very positive. It means that Grenada continues to do well since the last Article 4 consultation, which was conducted about a year ago. So without further ado, I again want to thank all the persons who are responsible, who participated in the consultations in the Article 4. So as the chair mentioned, you had persons from the various key sectors across Grenada giving input into the mission. And so we are happy and encourage that to continue as we go forward. So without further ado, I wish to turn over to Mrs. Lin for the presentation of our report.
Good morning, dear media friends. Thank you very much for coming to the press conference. My name is Huidan Lin. I'm the IMF Mission Chief for Grenada. Grenada is navigating the recovery from the pandemic and the increase in energy and food prices. Past fiscal prudence has provided needed resources for the country to respond to the shock after shock in the past 3 years. The pace of price increases, so-called inflation, picked up. It averaged at 2.6% in 2022, up from 1.2% in 2021. Fiscal relief measures introduced in the past year have helped dampen the price increase pressures from higher global prices. Without these measures, the price increases would have been stronger. The economy is continuing to grow and the recovery is taking hold. Real GDP is estimated to have expanded by 6.4% last year. Construction and tourism rebounded strongly. However, there was a sharp fall in the agricultural production due largely to bad weather. The fiscal balance, excluding interest payments, is estimated to have maintained a surplus of around 2.6% of GDP. Central government and government-guaranteed debt has declined to below 65% of GDP. For this year, real GDP is projected to continue expanding, but at a slower pace of 3.9%. This reflects the expectation that tourism recovery is maturing and public investment scales back from a very high level in returning to the fiscal rule constraint. Important short-term risks remain. The main risk is an economic slowdown in the key tourist source countries, especially if the global interest rate remain high and global financial conditions continue tightening. High import costs for construction materials could weigh on activity in the sector, while a renewed upswing in commodity prices would drag on growth and weaken the fiscal condition and position. Upside risks include stronger than expected tourism activity, larger domestic spillovers from public investment projects, the implementation of reforms to improve competitiveness, and an accelerated transition to renewable energy. In this context, our discussion with the government has focused on three areas. First, strengthening the fiscal framework. Second, safeguarding the financial stability. And third, enhancing competitiveness and building resilience. On fiscal, let me start with protecting the vulnerable. The government should continue improving the targeting and effectiveness of the social assistance program. Any saving as a result should be used for increasing transfers to the vulnerable. Turning to the fiscal rules, the 2023 budget rightly committed to returning to the fiscal rules. This will help preserve the hard-earned credibility. We support the authorities' plan to amend the fiscal responsibility framework to make it work better for the country's development needs. The upgraded fiscal framework should maintain the current focus on debt reduction. There's scope to make the government's medium-term fiscal framework more effective as a forward guidance to annual budget exercises. To enhance the oversight of the government's fiscal management, the Fiscal Responsibility Oversight Committee can take out additional tasks, such as evaluating the government's macroeconomic assumptions and providing assessments of fiscal risks. Reforms are urgently needed to preserve the sustainability of public finances. Reforms to the national insurance scheme through phased increases in the contributory rate and pensionable age should be implemented robustly. There is an urgent need to establish one new pension scheme that ensures the sustainability of the system to new entrants to the public service. The ongoing regularization of public sector workers should be guided by a thorough review of job functionality. A comprehensive wage review is also needed to ensure the wage grade reflects current labor market conditions. Now let me turn to the second area, that is the financial sector. Financial stability risks are moderate in our assessment. The increase in non-performing loans require GAFN, the national regulator of non-bank financial institutions, to continue monitoring the credit unions in the management of non-performing loans. Credit unions will need to strengthen their own risk management, which can be supported by participating the Regional Credit Bureau once it comes into operation. We recognize the important role played by the credit union in providing access to finance to the Grenadian people. We urge the government to implement a risk-based supervisory approach. Such approach can help detect issues and address them at an early stage. Finally, on policies for growth and jobs, as well as resilience building. Grenada should increase the domestic value added of tourism. This can be done through strengthening the linkages with agriculture and fisheries. Measures to boost agricultural productivity and build resilience to bad weather events will be critical to securing future production. Efforts are needed to expand digitalization, address the identified gender gaps, and incentivize female labor force participation. Training programs should focus on increasing technical and entrepreneurship, better integrating academic institutions and employers, as well as facilitating the transition to employment. Grenada remains highly vulnerable to natural disasters. The government has made progress in the implementation of the country's disaster resilience strategy, which is published on the website of Finance Ministry. Updating and implementing the regulations following the recent approval of the National Disaster Management Bill can improve policy response to disasters. Grenada can reduce its carbon emissions and improve its competitiveness by transitioning to renewables and investing in energy conservation. Efforts should include, first, continued improvement in the regulatory framework to incentivize and accelerate investments in renewables and climate adaptation. Second, concessional financing from multilaterals and climate funds can help catalyze private financing for these investments. Higher implementation of existing projects can demonstrate Grenada's commitment and ability attracting new financing. Greater awareness building about the environmental impact of drilling for geothermal generation would help foster public support and attract private capital. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lynn and Mr. Sylvester, for your comments and for the report we have received. At this point, we'd like to invite the media for a question. I will begin with persons who are in the room, so go ahead with your question.
I'm sorry, just before the media comes in, I omitted to mention when I spoke that we have also with us a representative from the Director's Office, that's the Executive Director's Office for Canada, Ireland, and the Caribbean. They also joined the mission, so I want to take this opportunity to welcome them as well. They are our support or representative at the level of the IMF board, so I think it's important for me to mention. Thank you.
Good morning, Callistra Farrier. On the issue of pension reform, Mission Chief talked about a single pension scheme that is urgently needed. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit, as well as the actual pension that was paid by the government, $75 million or so, that was paid by the government? Were you able, in your surveillance and your assessments, able to place the sort of impact it had on the economy, please?
Thank you, Callistra. Yeah, on pension reform, we would like to highlight that the current public pension scheme is not sustainable. Therefore, reform is urgently needed. Here, by one new pension scheme, we meant that one person should receive one pension. But we understand that a lot of options are put on table for discussion among the pension reform committee. The end goal is really to provide a sustainable pension scheme to the new entrants to the public sector that can be implemented in this country. We look forward to participation to hear some options from the pension committee. You may know that last year we provided some technical assistance to the country, provided some recommendations. Our pension experts will stand ready to to discuss with the pension reform and offer our technical advice. On pension payment, we can see that this amount of money being spent in the economy would have some positive impact on the economy. We see several channels. First, the pension recipient can pay off the debt, part of his or her debt. This way, it can will see some increases, for instance, in the wholesale and the retail numbers. And another channel, we see that this recipient could save the additional pension payment into the banking system. As you know, banks is a financial intermediary. Through the banking channel, it can be used to lend to other people who need to the borrowers. However, the degree of the impact from the banking channel would have depend on how badly the banking system need this additional deposit. Currently, the banking system is quite liquid. Therefore, from that channel, the impact may be very, it will take a lot of some time. The third channel we can see is that this person, he or she does not need to use this payment immediately. He or she can pass it on to the family, to grandchildren, to set up an education fund for education, and can be given as a gift to the younger relatives who will consume it in the country, buying a new car and taking the family out for more times for the restaurants and renovate the house, etc. So we see various channels that this payment can support the economy, but it takes time to be shown in the data. As I noticed, some channels may take longer time. Thank you.
Just a second. I am being told that we can see already an impact on the growth. The growth that we have seen, part of it has to do with the pension that has been paid. Is this bearing out in your surveillance, in your investigations?
We came here with growth estimation for last year, 6% of GDP. After discussion in the past 2 weeks, we decided to upgrade it from 6% to 6.4. We're seeing better numbers in construction, in tourism. As you know, construction includes public construction and private construction, and Grenadian people are also rebuilding their houses and renovating. It's difficult to distinguish how much of the construction is financed by this particular pension payment, but we do see better numbers now than before we came here. Thank you.
So if I may just chime in on that particular matter. And I did make the point to Kalisha that when the budget was presented, we had estimated about 3% growth. And by the half of the year, going into the pension payments and so on, that growth rate was upgraded, principally for the fact that we saw we were seeing better numbers. Of course, when the pension was paid, the expectation is that as the Whedon mentioned, that through the various channels you would have an impact in the economy. What we can't say at this particular stage is to what extent. So I would not sit here and say, for example, that the almost 3.5% additional growth that we're seeing is due mainly to the pension payment. But obviously there is an impact there. And as time goes on, we'll be able to provide more specific details in terms of the various channels.
Question for the PS. At this stage, is there a timetable for pension review, or it's kind of open-ended right now?
No, it's not open-ended. When the mandate was given to the committee, it was a one-year exercise. Quite naturally, there was a bit of a delay in terms of the committee mobilizing and doing its work. They have now gotten to the stage where they have taken on the consultant to assist with the work. So we do hope that by the beginning of next year, at least there should be some pension framework, I would call it, at that stage. But it will depend, of course, a lot on the consultations and agreements and so on with the various stakeholders. But it ought not to be an open-ended thing, yeah?
We'll now take some questions from the members of the media on the Zoom platform. Please indicate your name and that of your institution. Go ahead, Nisha.
Good morning, everyone. Nisha Paul, freelance journalist. The Fiscal Responsibility Oversight Committee has recommended the urgent reform of the fiscal responsibility legislation. Can you tell me what considerations is being given to these recommendations that were made?
Okay, thank you. The fiscal responsibility regulation is a very, very important regulation in the country. In the past nearly 1 decade, it has been implemented overall successfully, and it has also been proven useful in the crisis situation, as you've seen in the past 3 years. That said, over the use or implementation process in the past and during the past 3 years, we see some areas that can be improved to better serve the country's development purpose. Here, I would like to emphasize that it is extremely important to still uphold the principle, the objective to maintain the debt reduction goal, as the country's debt at 65% for the central government and government guaranteed debt still remains high for the country like this that is very vulnerable to various external shocks. The key recommendation that we provided to the government is to strike a very good balance of simplicity, flexibility, and enforceability, really to come out a upgraded fiscal framework that can be effective and can be implemented in this country and can be monitored by the general public represented by FROC. Thank you.
Linda Straker, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Can P.S. Sylvester chime in this regard, please? Thank you.
Sorry, you want me to chime in on the fiscal responsibility?
Yes, please.
Yes.
What considerations is the government giving to the recommendations made in the 2022 report? So.
Right. So the as you rightly said, the FROC presented the report, and they made some recommendations. We have also engaged the IMF in terms of providing technical assistance. This was done. They have submitted a draft report, which we are in the process of reviewing and doing some further consultation. So once we complete that, of course, it will go to Cabinet for approval and then to the next stage, Parliament and so on. So there are a number of recommendations that are on the table with respect to the rules. As we didn't just mention the debt anchor, which is one of the key rules that we are looking at. The determination for government is to determine what is that ideal anchor, and then when we will achieve that anchor by. So you would be aware, for example, that the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, they are encouraging the OECS or ECU countries to achieve a debt of 60% by 2035. So it's really for us to determine whether we want to do that before or whether we want to do that on that particular date. Now that will determine how quickly how quickly we do that. Now the other factor that comes into play is the whole issue of the primary balance. And we have to then determine what is the debt reducing primary balance that will get us to 60% by whatever date, or 55%, depending on what the final decision is on. Then there's all the issue of the wage rule. That again is something that has been discussed. The issue of coverage. Right now, for example, the focus is on central government debt. So whether the coverage would extend to all statutory bodies and state-owned enterprises and so on. So a lot of these things are actually being discussed with recommendations from the IMF, also from the FROC. And as I said, the final decision is for the cabinet. So we will make a recommendation to the cabinet, a decision then, and then of course beyond that you have amendment to the rule, or depending on the amount of changes, we may just basically do a repeal and replace.
Okay, Nisha.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Linda Straker.
Good morning to you, Ruth, and the head table. In the statement issued from the IMF earlier today, it says that measures to increase competitiveness, such as promoting gender equality, investing in skill development, and expanding digitalization, could help boost economic growth. Can the lady from the IMF expand on that, as well as the PS, please? What type of skills are you advocating for Grenada to focus on? Just expand on that statement for me, please.
Thank you, Linda. Regarding the skills, we think in general, entrepreneurial skills are very needed, and technical skills, especially related to information, computer, and technology, are needed. And these countries, and of course, depending on a thorough analysis of skill needs sector by sector, we recommend that the training program that is considered Imani program or other training program that is being upgraded by the government take into account sector-specific requirement for the skills. For instance, this marine protection would require very different skill set by various ministry or department. For the gender, for any identified gender gaps in either the participation, say the women given else equal, they are more likely to not participate the labor force. Investigated research or analysis has to be done to understand better why they choose not to participate the labor force. Is it because they are not willing to, or there are some obstacles that hold her back from joining the labor force? In the first case, then they may not need some actions from the government to support them, as long as they are happy not going to the labor force. However, if it's a second case, then the government will have to devise some strategy to remove these obstacles, either be making it easier for the woman to take care of the kids while joining the labor force participation, or take care of the elderly so that she can be flexible and go into the labor force. So I think these are some recommendations we are put on table for the government to take action on. Thank you, Linda.
Right, Linda,
if I may, okay. Yeah, if I was just asking the PS to comment, please.
Yeah, so if I may, as Viren said, the whole area of skills development. On that, the government has articulated a number of priority areas for development. And within that, of course, we have the whole issue of digitalization, which is not only an enabler, but also a driver of growth and development. So as you can perhaps see, a lot of reforms are taking place now with respect to sort of moving the whole digitalization agenda forward. So with respect, for example, to the reform of the tax system under the DG4 and how to the extent that persons can now not only just pay online, but pay, file, and of course get your taxes up and running. And we have had data and information and discussion, for example, with respect to how that has worked in other countries where the whole issue of revenue mobilization has increased significantly by virtue of just upgrading the tax system to a modern tax system. So in that direction, of course, the government has articulated the engagement in a lot of areas with respect to, for example, coding, the whole issue of just skills that we don't have now. And as you didn't say, for example, the whole issue of the marine sector, skills in that area, and generally speaking, just across the industry and the various sectors, just upgrading the various skills so as to basically help move that sector forward. So it's just not focusing on, as you say, just on the academics, but on the vocational and skill area. And so within the context of the MANI program and other programs that are being pursued, building skills in those areas.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvester.
I have another question. Can I go ahead?
Go ahead, Linda.
This one is to the IMF lady. I've noticed, to me, from reviewing the statement, no mention were made of the impact of the CBI program on the economy. However, you did mention that Grenada remains highly vulnerable to natural disasters. I am linking the two because a natural disaster such as a hurricane could literally crash the tourism sector overnight. However, CBI, even when we were going through the pandemic, people was doing the application online and so. Can you tell me, how do you see the future impact of CBI? And what is happening now? What will happen if European countries and others are successful in having that program reduced to minimal?
Thank you, Linda, for your question. On CBI inflows, we recognize that it has played an important role in the past in supporting the government's effort to upgrade the country's capital stock to make growth-friendly public investments. However, we share your view that the future of CBI inflows might be volatile. That's why we urge the authorities to use the CBI inflows very prudently. First, part of it can be saved for future in response, for instance, to natural disasters. Second, the part that is not being saved has to be used to really in a good public investment project so that it can generate jobs and growth, and it can be also to build the country's resilience to natural disasters. In response to the uncertain future of the CBIs, we encourage the government to start preparing for such downside scenario. For instance, to explore the possibility whether alternative financing at low cost can be sought. Of course, it has to be combined with stronger effort to seek savings from the other revenue streams. It could include taking a holistic look at the tax incentive framework to revisit the rationale, cost, and benefits of the existing framework and to update it from where savings could be made. Other efforts on the revenue side can also include enforcing the tax administration more forcefully so that all the tax that can be collected should be collected. On the expenditure side, savings can also be generated from implementing the public investment programs better we are delighted to hear that to see that the government has put a priority on this area to improve the implementation rate of projects spearheaded by the newly established Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation. So, in a nutshell, we share your view that the CBI outlook is uncertain. At the same time, the government should get ready for decline in CBI on the revenue side, on the expenditure side. They can put more efforts to cope with that. While the CPI inflows are reasonably strong, they also should make the most prudent use of them. Thank you.
Okay, Ms.
Just
Stricker,
for
is that
a
all?
follow-up on that. Recently, we would have had in the Parliament a reduction in the amount that is allowed to save. How would that affect our savings? It has now been reduced to 10% instead of what was originally written to 40%. How do you think that is going to affect the government's ability to save?
Thank you, Linda. The government can make savings from various channels. One channel, as you noted, is through saving part of bigger or smaller portion of the CBI inflows. They can also save through achieving a surplus of fiscal balance. We were delighted to see that last year the fiscal balance achieved a surplus again to 2.6% of GDP, and this year they are aiming to save 3.5%. We do not prescribe how much the government should save from any particular source. We take an overall view of whether the savings are sufficient or not in cope with future shocks and for debt reduction. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to comment on that as well. So the decision was to reduce from 40% to 10% the set aside from the National Transformation Fund resources. Yeah. I just want to make the point as well that up until today, or up until very recently, there was no savings put aside with respect to that contingency fund, as it were. So what is being done now within the context of where we are is to at least ensure that there's some feedback that I'm not sure is coming from. Right. To ensure that at least the government can make that set aside, while at the same time ensuring that it can continue to implement its program. It makes absolutely no sense putting aside 40%, and you have needs in terms of capital expenditure, capital investment, and so on. So I think where we are at this particular stage is basically setting that up. The government recently reconstituted the National Transformation Board and the account at the central bank that has been established, and so very soon we will start. Very soon we will continue to capitalize that. We have made a commitment through the development policy credit, which we are now negotiating with the World Bank, to at least have up to $15 million in that account by the end of 2024.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lynn and Mr. Sylvester. We will take the final two questions before we conclude. Mr. Mark, go ahead.
Yes, the head of mission. I'm not sure if you could infer from your opening statement that there are some concerns about the management and operation of the credit union sector. I think that's correct. What are the exact concerns? And to the PS, the banking sector, do you think that the policies are progressive enough in this current environment, and is that a function of regulation? What's happening there?
So on credit unions, We would like to acknowledge that credit union is very important to the economy and to the people. It has wide membership. It takes deposits and extend loans. Many members who cannot get the credit from elsewhere, they get it from credit union. Therefore, it is very, very important that the credit unions are doing well. As to the concern, it's mainly that the credit union has higher non-performing loans on its book, and these non-performing loans, some have the collateral, meaning that there's some asset backing it, some do not. But we recognize that in this market, it is difficult to re-evaluate the value of the collateral, and also seizing the collateral, repossessing the collateral is difficult. So it's difficult to ask people to leave their house for the credit union to get back the house. Therefore, we urge the credit union to take a look at their risk management practices to make sure that they know better their credit, the credit history of the borrowers. This way, they can make a better decision regarding how much they can extend to this person. It's not really to deter anyone. It is really for the health of the credit union system. We believe that regulator can help them. They can visit them and discuss with them and talk through the governance and the risk management system, and the regulator can also do some so-called stress testing. So if the economy is doing not as expected, not as well as expected, what could happen to credit union? So it's more of encouraging credit unions to conduct business more cautiously. At the same time, for regulators to help them more often. As you know, any issue that is detected earlier can be addressed quicker and better. We are really coming out of this perspective. We are not really raising any alarm about credit unions' health. As you noted in the beginning, we said that the financial risk is moderate despite all the tightening of the global financial conditions. We want this sector to thrive, and it's good for the whole economy. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you. Well, as you're aware, the central bank is the regulator for the banks, and GAFIN for the non-banks. And as we then said, the stability of the financial sector is important. In fact, it's a necessary condition for growth. And the banking sector in particular, I think they are, for the most part, very stable. Whether and to what extent they can be more, I don't want to say more risky, because you don't want any failure in the system. But I do believe that the banks and so on can do more in terms of perhaps investing in different sectors. We have a concentration in the banking sector, for example, in mortgages and vehicle loans and those kinds of loans. I know they do, some do, some of the commercial type loans. But I think in terms of the MSME, which I think there's a big gap, to the extent that the bank can increase the capacity to be able to lend in those sectors will help, in my view, support growth and employment and so on. So yes, they can do more, but that has to be taken with that statement has to be taken with a lot of caution, because you do want the bank to remain stable, because that is very important for the actual conditions for growth and so on and development.
The difficulty with ordinary people opening accounts and so on, is that a function of regulation or just what? Even the Prime Minister expressed his frustration with that entire thing. I mean, is that because of an Eastern Caribbean bank regulation, or is just local management approach?
Well, I think a lot of what drives how the bank operate in some respects has to do with AML, CFT issues. Yeah. anti-money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism issues, and so on. And the whole issue of even correspondent banking relationships, because there are a lot of issues around that, which even the IMF and so on are trying to provide support in terms of helping the region, because not just Grenada, but the region in particular, we face quite a bit of challenges in that regard. I'm not sure if there's some perception about the region, but that in itself has created some issues in terms of how we operate. You've seen, for example, in the last few years, a lot of the international banks have, in fact, exited the region. And so within that context, the banks are trying to be very careful, I would say, because you can have issues with respect to fees and fines and loss of correspondent bank relationships.
Thank you very much. Ms. Callister, you can go ahead.
On the issue of taxation, the Grenada government has $700 million in uncollected taxes. With help from your technical arm, we determined that we have 194 million that's collectible. We're only shooting to collect 75 million of that, which is just a little over 10% of what's outstanding. We're making improvements with our tax collection system. Are you satisfied on this surveillance trip as to where we are in strengthening our tax collection regime? And also the issue of the amnesty. Should we have really given an amnesty at this point in time to people who were dodging taxes?
Yeah, thank you, Callister. On tax amnesty, we are worried, and we emphasized several times to the government that this one should be the last one. Not only from the government's perspective, this is last one. It should be very deeply in people's mind, and those who are owing tax to the government, this is the last one. By only saying it's not enough, the government will have to illustrate the stronger enforcement in collecting the tax. This will really signal that we want to strengthen the enforcement, and there's no concern. I guess you're concerned about the moral hazard issue, and we hear very, very strong commitment from the finance minister that it will be the last one. Regarding your tax collection question, we have seen significant improvement over the past years, not only last year. Through we have been engaging with authorities on that matter for a while. It has been improving, and as you can see that the tax collection in the first quarter and in the past year, it has been quite good and in line with what you can see from the nominal GDP growth. That said, a lot of still there's some room for improvement in our tax collection. We would say that the administration office, they could also utilize some indicators to see whether there might be some risks in the tax collection by comparing the collection against the local activity, and that would be, for instance, imply for imports, etc., and to see early signal of possible tax not being collected and go after them. This will require quite a lot of manpower. We see that these offices are having a lot of tasks as well. So some principle that can be followed is to have risk-based monitoring, like high risk, high impact tax collection will require stronger follow-up, require some early analysis. Overall, we encourage the authorities to continue put effort on tax collection. We stand ready to continue supporting the authorities. Thank you.
I'm still, is there?
They're on the team.
Oh,
But you can ask. You can ask.
They're not in the room.
If
Oh.
it's something related to Grenada, we might be able to answer.
Oh, it was related to Grenada and Grand Lake. So.
Yeah, you can ask. I can say if I don't know. If I don't know.
I wanted to ask about progress from the last administration. They had announced some measures that, in terms of the whole management of Grand Lake, and I wanted to know where we are with that. Under a new administration, are we still pursuing that? Or, and I was going to ask the World Bank to what their recommendation and suggestion would be for the solution for Grand Lake, but I can't ask you that, Mike.
I would not be able to answer that.
Well, Hamlet was suggesting you could say what they told you.
Well, I'll take the opportunity to give everyone the last opportunity to ask a question. I see Nisha's hand is up. So those on Zoom, you have a final opportunity to answer. It's okay. And those in the room as well. Final question. Go ahead, Nisha.
Thank you very much. In relation to the audited public accounts, the FARC also expressed concern that it was not presented in the Parliament since 2016, I believe. Is the PS in a position to speak to the status of this report? So.
Yes, but I perhaps want the IMF to chime in on that if you want.
We are all for transparency, and we encourage authorities to catch up with timely publication of the audited financial statements of the government and SOE and statutory bodies. We understand that part of the reason for the delay is due to the pandemic and among other priorities. But now the pandemic is I cannot say behind us, but it's abating, and it's about the time to put this back to the priority to catch up with the publication of these financial statements. Thank you.
So thank you for the question. Very important. You will find other departments and so on. There are significant capacity issues. So one of the things that we have committed to do is to build capacity in the Accountant General Department to be able to deliver on those accounts with respect to submitting to the Audit Department, and then from the Audit Department, of course, to the Parliament and the Public Accounts Committee and so on.
Go ahead, Linda Stricker. You have a final question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My question is to do just for the expanding on what the statement would have said, that with regard to the vulnerable, and just let me just read it exactly what was said. So I need further expansion on it.
Linda, may I clarify with you? You're asking the expansion of the vulnerables, the social security system?
The social, it's a continued focus must be on increase. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Linda. On social assistance program, we understand, we recognize the important role played by SEED and other assistance programs through providing needed support to the recipients who are on the list. However, it has been a while since the eligibility is revisited, determined, and circumstances has changed. As you know, criteria of a person being vulnerable is also evolving. We encourage authority to take this opportunity, they are actually doing it, to look into the eligibility with some technical support from social partners, from development partners, to make sure that this list contains really those people who need support, and also to look at other data sources, such as the soon-to-be completed, finalized census, labor force participations, all that they can gather to have an update on social and economic status of its people, so that they can have a holistic view of who those are vulnerable but are left out from the current list, so that they can strengthen the beneficiary information, have a complete view of who needs support. After this is done, we invite authorities to take a look at the level they are receiving, the support, the cash transfer or other income support they receive against some other criteria, that the need to have an analysis, because there's a balance to strike, right? You do not want to encourage someone who can take a job to choose not go take a job while waiting for recipient, right? So they need to really look into this carefully to decide whether there's the additional increase is needed. After all, the fiscal space is very limited. $1 spent on one area not necessary. It takes opportunity of this dollar used more wisely in a better way in another area. So our recommendation to the government is to strengthen the effectiveness and the targeting of this social protection program, SEED and others first, then look for the saving. So from this process, we expect some savings can be generated. This can go back to those people who need it, and then take a holistic view of the need for further increase. Thank you.
Yes, I've heard what the head of mission said, but as a matter of policy, in the short term, is that controversial 150 or whatever the figure is, seed payment going to come back this year?
Well, I can't answer that. I don't have that information. And I say it's a issue for the government to decide. As I think the approach that I have heard articulated is that they are sanitizing the list. And I suspect once the list is sanitized, as who then says there should be savings, and of course that savings can be used to actually provide additional cash benefit to those persons who are actually the ones that are needed, that need the benefit. But I can't speak specific to the 150. I don't know. I have not heard how the government indicate any position on that particular matter. No, I can't speak to that.
Were you able to get a look at employment numbers, the movement or projections for employment for the last year, and what's projected going forward? And also, what's your assessment of the government's handling, your overall assessment of the government's handling of the economy in the last year?
On employment data, the latest data we had was for second quarter of 2021, based on the quarterly labor force survey. We understand that the labor force survey was paused to make space for the 2022 census, which is being finalized. Once it is finalized, the work on labor force survey will resume. It will give us continued number on employment. Based on what we've seen on the activity, we would have expected that employment picture is improved from what we see in 2021, where the growth, the recovery just started, but we do not have a projection for the exact number for the employment or unemployment. As to the overall handling of the economy over the last year, I would say we are overall satisfied with how the government responded to, first, the COVID shock, second, the war in Ukraine, which gave rise to increases in energy and food prices, as well as the increased supply chain disruptions. Why do I say that? I think I can offer a few points. First, it is the flexibility of all the measures that the government take to support. It's not permanent measures, which will cost a lot on the fiscal. The measure is designed in a way that it can be withdrawn when circumstances allows it. Take an example of the freight cap to 2029 level. It was announced at the peak of the disruption of supply chain. People cannot afford any imports, but it was rolled back after 6 months or so when situation eases. This demonstrates the flexibility, the data-driven policy making on the fiscal side. Second, the determination to make the pension reform, to make the pension system sustainable. Once the government reached out to us for technical support very early on after the court ruling, seeking our technical support, and we in the past 2 weeks we get our view from the past 2 weeks, from what we heard, is that the government is determined to really make the system work for everyone. Because if the current system is not changed, it will inevitably take away the resources that can be spent, for instance, for the vulnerable, for the infrastructure, for the health and education. The third one is the fiscal responsibility framework. It has been working well overall, but it has illustrated a few shortcomings. I have to say, it was tested during the pandemic. The escape clause was triggered for 3 years. It gives the breathing room for the country to deploy some stimulus measures to help the people so that the economy did not crash. However, the existing law does not tell us when to go back. It would have depend on the nature of the shock and the size of the shock. We are encouraged to hear that at those technical levels, the government is willing to hear our views, to seek our support, to really figure out how to best design this framework so that in future unfortunate scenarios like this, the framework can be used, and at the same time to deliver the framework by itself can deliver a clear message to the public. This is what law allows the government to do this, and this is what the government is proposing. Currently, I think there's quite a few confusion so that the communication cannot be as smooth as possible. Based on this, we are quite satisfied with the overall dealing of the crisis and also going back to fiscal rules. And at the time, we are not yet back to the 2019 level. Thank you.
I shouldn't worry too much about the government. We have to depend on overdraft anytime soon.
I think PS can give you that promise. I can.
So I mean, I think the assessment from the fund indicate that the government continues to accumulate buffers. I would say that because once you have a primary balance and so on, and you in other words, once you spending less than you collecting, you will continue to build buffers. So we've had a situation, I can't remember how far back, that we have not been using overdraft facilities or not relying on overdraft facilities. I don't anticipate that we'll go back to that position any time soon. And I mean, I can recall if you go back to the many years I've been in the system, where all we had was a $60 million overdraft at one of the local banks, and 30 million of that was hardcore. So basically, you had to manage everything between the $30 million window, and sometimes we had to ask the bank to give us a little bly, as we say locally, to meet some of our commitments. I'm happy that we're not at that particular stage, and perhaps we'll not go back there anytime soon.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'd like to give the head table a final moment to give some closing remarks. We will start with Ms. Lynn and then Mr. Sylvester. Thank you.
Thanks all. I would wish the best luck to the Grenadian people and the government in the transformation. Thank you.
And thank you very much. I think I just want to say thank you. Thank you, first of all, to the IMF team and the other development partners who are here with us that we've hosted over the past 2 weeks or so. We are grateful to provide the support that will allow you to do your work. And of course, to all the persons who participated in the consultations. I know that there were broad consultations involving a lot of stakeholders, and so just thank you for the opportunity for actually engaging with the fund, so that when the fund makes an assessment, it's not the Ministry of Finance that's saying not PS that is pushing an agenda. And just to say that we welcome the positive assessment of the recent macroeconomic developments, outlook, and risks, and that we broadly concur with the assessment and recommendations, and that we look forward to continue to work with the IMF and other development partners. All right, and so just to take this opportunity to wish the persons who are returning to their home bases and so on safe travels, and to thank each and everyone again finally.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sylvester, and also Mr. Lin for the presentation of the report and for so ably answering all of the difficult questions. I'd like to also say thank you to the media for asking questions and making comments, and also for your usual accurate reporting. And I'd like to also, on behalf of the finance team, to wish the team also safe travel to your various destinations, and hope that you will take the opportunity to visit us again in another capacity, maybe. So thanks to everyone, and on behalf of the Ministry of Finance, thank you so much for joining, for all the viewers and listeners. Also to the GIS and the Parliament Joint Technical Team, thank you so much for coming. It's the conclusion of the IMF mission of the 2023 Article 4 consultation with Grenada. I am Ruth Roberts. Thank you so much for joining us. Please join us again next time.
Well, here we come to the end of the Heartbeat program for today. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and join us again next Sunday where we do it all over again. Have a great Sunday afternoon.